Hello, and welcome to the channel. In tonight's episode, I am not in the garden. This is not going to be a planting video. I'm not planting anything today, not watering anything. We're not doing anything plant related. Today is all about how we get to that. So if you'd like to know what I'm talking about, stay tuned. I sighed because it's taken me a long time to get here. I have finally started planting up my fall garden. Today is October 7th. A lot has been going on. And I started planting my fall garden, I want to say October 3rd. I did a whole lot of planting. And October 5th, I did a whole lot of planting. I had a bunch of errands to run. I had every intention of getting outside today, but time got away from me. And so I did not plant the other section of the garden that I wanted to plant. And that's what made me want to come and talk to you all today. I have been in my home almost 3 years. This coming January will mark the 3-year mark that I've been in this house. This house had no landscape when I moved in. There was literally a mud patch on the front of the house when I moved in. It was absolutely horrendous. There was no grass, nothing, no trees, no shrubs, no nothing. It was an unfinished landscape. And that got me to thinking, fall. There are many of you who are moving into new locations, be that you're renting, you're owning, and you're trying to figure out, do I want to grow a garden? If you do want to grow a garden, what is that going to look like for me? I know for me, I had a house full of boxes. Every room, even the garage, was packed full of boxes. I had downsized from my original home, moved into a rental property, lived there for many years, and then when I moved into this house, it was still a downsize. It was an upsize from the rental property, but it was a downsize from the house that I originally moved from that sparked all of this. So I had boxes everywhere, and I had to figure out what to do with portions of my life that just didn't fit in my space. But the one thing I was not willing to compromise on was my garden. I decided well before I packed up my boxes in the rental property that I wanted a garden that was going to have multiple areas and contain multiple things. And what I mean by that is I wanted flowers, I wanted trees that were shade loving, that were fruit bearing. I wanted to grow food, many different varieties of food. What I could grow, I wanted to grow. In the midst of that, I have had many challenges, from things that I could possibly control to things that I could not control, from you name it, watering, creatures, sunlight, heat, you name it. I have experienced so many challenges in this home, more so than I did in the house that I owned before I moved into this house. And I keep finding myself going back to, I never experienced that when I lived in the other house. I didn't uh, go through all of this kind of thing at this time of year for this kind of item in the garden in the other house. Now, granted, the other house was larger, had a bigger yard. I was on a green belt. I wasn't overlooked in on by my neighbors. I didn't have pest problems like I have here. And so to me, it seemed to be a much better location. But I am where I am, and I have to learn to deal with what I have in the meantime. And you might find yourself that way as well. I have been talking to friends, seeing people online that are moving, they're in transition, And when I was in transition, the one thing I thought of was, what do I want my garden to be? Where do I want my garden to be? How much can I physically do in that garden? And can I be prosperous in as much as I'd like to do in that garden? And that took time, a lot of elbow grease, a few tears, some frustration, but definitely some ingenuity. And here we are, 2 years in, almost 3 years in, and I have created a number of gardens. Are they what I'd like for them to be just yet? No, they are not. I still have work to do. My food garden is experiencing issues with irrigation. I'm not sponsored, but if anybody wants to sponsor me in the irrigation area, come on. My email is in my account. Send me email. Let's collaborate. Let me show your product on my channel because I could really use you. I've put in flower gardens on both sides of my home. I have a memorial garden. I have a cut flower garden. On the front part of my home, I put a garden up there. And I even spent last weekend creating even more garden beds in the front of my house. I am bound and determined to cut out as much grass as I possibly can. So I'm continuing to evolve in the space that I'm in. And I wanted to bring some of that to you just in case you are where I was starting out when I moved into this house. Now, the first thing I did when I moved into this house was I put a tree in the front yard. The trees they put on this property, there were 3 trees. That was it. That's all, nothing else. They were water loving trees. And I live in an area that gets severe drought, does not get a lot of rain, hence the drought. And I didn't want those trees because I would spend most of my time putting water down for those trees to survive. So they were immediately removed. I added a tree to the front yard, and I thought that I made a point to make sure that the hole was properly dug out. When they removed that tree, I thought that would be sufficient. I took the tree out of the pot. I roughed up the roots and fertilized, put compost, put a huge amount of water, plopped the tree in the ground, and the tree did well for a while. But for some reason, that tree did not survive, no matter how much water I poured on it throughout the weeks. The tree succumbed. So after talking to the nursery, pulling the tree out, looking at the hole, I assessed after digging out that hole is that there were lots of stones, which shouldn't have been a huge problem, but I pulled out pieces of rubble, basically. You know how when you move, maybe you don't, but sometimes when you move into a new home, there's rubble everywhere. There are bricks that they couldn't use, they're broken. They toss them on the ground. And you end up digging out a lot of this rubble when you are digging into your ground. I found that there was a large amount of sand. I couldn't figure out why there was so much sand in and around that tree hole. And then I figured that part out as the subdivision began to grow, and I was seeing them finish other houses on the street, because this street was not populated yet with lots of houses. I noticed they were bringing in bobcats full of sand and dumping that on the front yard and not putting down compost or topsoil. So there was a huge amount of sand. Well, I'm no soil expert, but I do know that if you have a lot of sand and very little else, that's going to run off all the water. It's going to be completely full of nothing more than great drainage. And I could not, no matter how much I watered that tree, because I watered that front lawn. That front lawn was beautiful when it finally got grass down. The lawn was green. The flowers were beautiful. The tree was growing, but I could not get enough water on that tree. So that tree succumbed. I was very angry and frustrated behind that. So I waited a whole nother 6 months or so. Fall rolled around. I bought another tree. That tree sat in its container until the following spring, this spring. I drove 8 hours away to get this tree, and it did great in the container. I watered it. I kept it in a partially sun, partially shaded area. When spring rolled around, I put that tree in the ground. I watered that tree. I babied that tree. I watered the front yard. Everything was looking great. Grass was great. Flowers were beautiful. The tree began to lose leaves. Could not figure out what was going on with the tree. You guessed it. The tree died. I'm sick. I drove so far to get this tree, but the tree did not survive. Now, they told me, because I talked to the arborist, that it could have been two different reasons why this tree didn't survive. Because it was a tree that probably needed an undercovering, meaning it didn't need to be exposed to the hellish sun that it was getting for all the hours it was getting it. So I learned a lesson there. I dug the tree out. Second thing I learned was I did my best to pull some of those roots out of that root ball so that the roots wouldn't just continue to girdle and go down. But what I found was those roots weren't going anywhere. And I believed I tamped that tree in and seeded it properly, but for some reason, the roots were not going anywhere. So I went back to the nursery, a local nursery, and I was talking to the nursery owner there and trying to figure out what to do with the front lawn because it gets a tremendous amount of sun. The only water it gets is rain or if I turn the sprinklers on. And at this point, it has been so hot this year that I was not trying to do excessive water on that front lawn. It just wasn't happening. The flowers were doing fine on their own. They were roughly established to the best of their ability. They were thriving. Some of them did take a few hits from the sun, but they were flowering, doing the best they could, looked halfway decent. Grass looked like garbage. So I put in recently another tree, a tree that a couple of my neighbors have, and the nursery talked about would be a good tree for full sun, once it's established, drought tolerant. I'm not 100% sold on the tree. I wanted a tree that had bigger leaves that would be able to give me some leaves for my leaf mold at the end of the season, but I got what would be best for the location, and I was limited on what I could get. So when you are shopping for plants, because there is a moral to the story, the moral to the story is make sure that you know, number one, the amount of hours your plant is going to get full sun. Where do you live? How strong is that sun? Because where I live in South Texas, the sun here is horrendous. And things that say full sun don't often survive in the full sun of South Texas. It's horrible. And I paid a dear price because of that. I've lost many things, as well as watering can be an issue. Don't forget, sometimes we underwater because we're trying not to overwater, or we overwater thinking that we didn't give it enough water. So for me, those are issues that I have. I've had it with several of my containers, primarily with trees. I have an issue with trying to love my trees and give them what they need. And so I'm working on that. Now let's pivot to planting your fall plants, because that's primarily why we're here. If you're moving to a new location or you're in a place that you don't own, or maybe you do own it and you're looking at it going, where do I put my garden? When I moved into this house, I already knew. I had the builders send me photographs of the backyard. So I kind of knew what I was working with. I had an idea of where I kind of wanted what I currently had. And so it didn't quite work out the way I would have liked, when I pulled up in the U-Haul, because my entire garden was in a 20-foot U-Haul. There was nothing in that U-Haul besides everything garden related. Everything garden was in that U-Haul. All the household stuff was being brought in by the movers. So, as I mentioned, there was nothing but mud everywhere. We had to lay down cardboard in order to get the wheelbarrows and all the gardening stuff from the front of the house to where the back garden is. And it was a muddy mess. I had some really upset family members by the time it was all over. We began to lose light. It got black dark. It was pitch black dark. And everything just was placed wherever there was an open space in the backyard because my family was tired. Um, this happened as I was trying to hurry up and get everything off the U-Haul truck. I mistakenly stepped off the ramp incorrectly and I fell at the back of the U-Haul truck. So then I was relegated to sitting down because they were like, no more, no more for you. You have to sit down. So then I couldn't help anymore. I had no idea, but in one of my containers, there was a snake. And one of my family members found a snake in the U-Haul. They were trying to keep it. We were not having that. So the snake was released somewhere away from the house. There was a lot going on. So in moving into this house, the garden didn't shape up how I wanted it. Everything was just pulled off that U-Haul and just dumped in the backyard. No rhyme, no reason. Everything was just cardboard boxed down and mud. It took me quite a while to move everything around because I wanted to make sure that the garden was what my vision was. So I didn't get help in the configuration because I wanted to do that. I wanted it to come out of here and be visibly where I thought it needed to be. I wanted to pull it out of my mind and put it in the backyard. And that's basically what I did. I looked at the backyard and said, okay, this is where I want my compost. So that's where the trash bins went. And I started moving little things here, there, and everywhere. Now I did get some help moving some of the big containers. I knew where I wanted the cattle panels. I had those put up, did get help with that. And then I began to move my pots around and figure out where I wanted to see all of those containers until we reach today. I'm still moving things around. As of this spring, I began to create more containers in the circular garden, in the back fence garden. I moved things from the orchard area, moved things in around the cattle panel garden. I laid down a patio for the fire pit area. Soon, I will probably be getting rid of the temporary greenhouse. If you all have been with me for a while, you know I had a pop-up greenhouse in the North Texas garden. That's where I put my tender plants in the wintertime. But know that in North Texas, it snowed, it was icy, it was horrendous. And so I didn't get as much as I would have liked to survive, but I did have some things that survived, and I was able to bring that down here. So the garden that you see today has been thriving, and I've added to it over these last 2 years. So as of today, when it comes down to gardening in your new space, you got to know where you want to put everything. You've got to know how you're going to water everything. You need to know where your sun hits your garden from sun up to sundown. And once you have all of that put down, you can either buy something fancy or you could use a spiral binder, notepad, and write down how you want it to look. Sketch out what you want your garden to look like. I sketched out what I wanted my garden to look like, and I probably don't have it in this particular binder. I do not. I have it in another one. I have a couple of garden binders. So what I did was I literally sketched out where the house was, where the driveway was, where the fence gate area was, and what I wanted to see along the side of the house, what I wanted in the back garden, the size of the flower beds, what I wanted in those flower beds. I knew I was going to put up my greenhouse because I bought that greenhouse when I was in North Texas. So I put that greenhouse up, my mom and I knew where I wanted it to go. I already had my temporary greenhouse out there, so I already had an idea of what the black greenhouse would look like because I marked it out. I knew I wanted a shed. I had that shed built a year after moving into the house. So little by little, things began to come together. And so the first thing I would suggest is put your ideas on paper. You don't need anything fancy. I use just a spiral notebook. Draw it out, put it on paper. And then look at your seeds. This is just an empty packet of seeds. What I tend to do is when I use my seeds, if I want to go buy more of something, I put that seed packet in a little plastic bag and I say to myself, do I want to buy this again? Can I barter for this? Does a friend of mine have this? Can I save seed for this? And so I keep these so I know what I need to do going forward. That's just me. I also take my spiral notebook and I write down what I've sown, when I sowed it. I may not put I sowed it October 3rd or October 5th. I may just put I sowed this in January. I sowed this in April. I try to write down the day, but things get kind of messed up for me because I'll sow it, I'll put it in either a container or in the garden. When it grows, then it's the labeling part that gets kind of messed up for me. And so I have been placing things in my spiral notebook as far as what I've sown and what day I've sown it since I want to say last January all the way through September. I began to write in this spiral notebook. Now, like I said, I have planted and sowed a lot over the past several days. So let's go over some of the things, maybe all the things that I put in my garden. Now, I know you all can't see my computer, but almost every, I need to finish off what I've been doing. But I have an Excel spreadsheet I created many years ago, and it spans from January all the way through December. I've got tabs. And I put down, if I have a seed packet that says, let's just grab a seed packet for Gee Whiz. If I have a seed packet, like I have right here, this one's empty. If it says March through August or May through June, I will put this information, I'll put the seed name, and under the tab that says March through August, I'll put that seed on that tab so that I know within those months this can be sown. One of the ways I keep up with what I should be sowing and when. I have a huge spreadsheet and I need to add all the new seeds that I've been purchasing lately on the spreadsheet. But for right now, I have the bulk of what I have in my seed boxes. So that works for me. Now, what I started sowing was I started filling up my green stock. Don't know if you know this, and the sale might be over by now. By the time you see this, it could be over. But green stock had a warehouse sale. Not gonna lie, took advantage of it. Don't ask me why. I really shouldn't have. There's way too much going on in my life, and I should not have, but I did. So, with that being said, I got an inexpensive green stock for myself and one for a family member. And so I started sowing seeds in the green stock. I have not been 100% successful with my green stock, and I'm going to tell you why. This is my experience. May not be anyone else's experience. If this is your experience, put that information in the description box below because I would like to hear from you. When I put seeds in the green stalk, my seeds don't always germinate. I don't quite know why. I do my best to water it. Maybe I'm watering it with the wrong setting on the wand. So what I've done this time is I have taken that wand and it's on mist. And I've been misting my green stalk. And I've also covered the pockets with vermiculite. And so I did notice that one of my pockets, I have germination. I haven't checked it today because, again, I've been out running around. I might still have time when I finish this video to go out and spritz the green stalk, and then I'll be able to give you guys information on that at a later date. But I find that if I put seeds in my green stalk, they don't do well. I have to start from a plant start that I've bought or one I've started myself, or those green stalks just are not growing hardly anything. And so I tried it again and I planted nothing but seeds in the green stalk, and I am trying to keep it misted, and we'll see how this works. But I started sowing seeds on October 3rd, and I can't tell you everything that's in the green stalk right now. I planted herbs and lettuces is what I planted in there. I have a couple of pockets that need to be planted up, but I was going to do that today. Didn't get around to it, but I still have plenty of time. So I'm going to get it done before this week is over. I may be able to do it in the morning. So I've planted in the circular garden as well as the greenhouse many things. In the greenhouse, I know I've planted several different types of onions. I planted shallots, and I've also planted celery. Almost forgot. And all of that's in a container in the greenhouse. And I'm going to check on that tomorrow to make sure that it hasn't sprouted yet. But I started all of those on the 3rd. Now, in the circular garden, I planted up several different types of carrots, parsnips, walking onions, as well as beets in the circular garden. I still have more to plant in the circular garden, but again, I'll be planting up the rest of the garden by the end of this week. I planted up all of the containers around the cattle panel except for 2, because one container is full of garlic chives, and the lady cream peas has infiltrated that, so I can't quite see the soil. I need to peel back those lady cream peas and take a look at what's going on so that I can plant something in there. But I think the garlic chives have taken over that container. We shall see. And it's next to the loofah container, and the loofah container has just gone completely out of control. It's nuts right now. I've got loofah everywhere. And I really hope that before it gets cold here at the end of November, that all those loofah have come to the end of their life cycle so I can harvest them, because I want all those loofah. But I planted up around the cattle panel my collard greens, as well as carrots and beets. I also had one onion baby that survived, so I put that in one of those containers. I planted mustard greens in one container, more carrots. I planted rutabaga and more carrots. And so I have gone through and just planted. Oh, I also planted in the greenhouse leeks, 2 different types of leeks. In the circular garden, I planted Swiss chard. In the greenhouse, I planted a lot of herbs, and the metal raised bed that my sister gave me many years ago, that is on the side of the cattle panel. I also planted herbs in that. And just to give you an idea of the type of herbs that I have planted this year, and I've got my fingers crossed that my herb game will be out of this world. We shall see. I planted rue, stinging nettle, wild bergamot, toothache plant, St. John's wort, lemon balm, rosemary, German chamomile, let's see, sage. What else? What else? Those are not herbs. That's all I can think of in this column. In and around the garden, because there are other areas I've also planted. Let's see, I planted bunching onions also in the greenhouse. I planted Paris Island lettuce, Little Gem lettuce, watercress, corn salad, Merlot lettuce, arugula. I can't see that. My list got a little wet, so some of the ink is kind of. But I planted lots of lettuce in the green stalk, all season lettuce, 4-season lettuce. I planted something my sister gave me. It's an Asian green called rape. I don't know what it is. I really need to look up what that is. I don't have a pen right next to me. I need to look up what that is. Um, in the greenhouse, I planted giant red celery, pink plume celery, golden boy celery, Chinese white celery, and cutting celery. Um, I have an assortment of beets that I put out in the garden and several different tot soys. Bok choy, red tot soy, several different types of carrots like Nantes carrots, tender sweet carrots. Um, let's see, what's this? I know I put cosmic purple carrots, black Spanish carrots. I don't think I'm gonna like those, but I had a really old packet, so I put them out there anyway. I did say atomic red, didn't I? Just some of everything, you all. I planted some bloody dock. I planted some, I think I told you, mixed colored Swiss chard. And I have been a planting maniac. That's just page 1. And I didn't even tell you everything that I planted on page 1. Oh, in the green stalk, I planted some English and common thyme. I planted some ashwagandha in the raised garden bed. I planted some more mullein, some feverfew, some catnip, white sage, big Italian parsley, tarragon, caraway, chervil, white yarrow, anise, marjoram, winter savory, chicory, shiso, cilantro, hyssop, oregano, and peppermint. So I also planted in the greenhouse some warrior bunching onions that my girlfriend gave me. So I have been sowing. I have so many seeds that I have sown. It is ridiculous, and I still have more that I want to sow. But the thing of it is that you got to know where it's all going to go. And so what I did, even though I named a lot of stuff, I've already put that in containers in the garden. And I also labeled the vast majority of it. I tried to use containers that was already dedicated for those plants, and I just reused the tags that were already there. All the herbs that were in the green stalks had tags already, and I tried to put the same herbs in the same spot. Same thing with the containers in the greenhouse. The raised grow bed that my sister gave me, it was already labeled. All the containers around the cattle panel has been labeled, and I tried to put the seeds that I already had plants of that particular seed in those locations. And that's important. Don't recreate your effort. If you already have something growing in a container, like an onion, a beet, a Swiss chard, or whatever, try to add your new seed of that thing in that container. That way you already have your label and you know where it is. And so even though I have gone over a lot of seeds that I've already put in the garden, there's still so much more that I want to put in the garden. I have both of my seed boxes open by the back door. And so I will try to take you guys along with me when I go out tomorrow, either morning or afternoon. Like I said, there's lots going on. And so I think I'm going to be taking a walk with my neighbor in the morning. We'll see. Um, we'll see. I took a walk on my treadmill by myself today, so we'll see. But I have all of my kales I want to get in. I have some sweet peas I want to get in. And I have I have beans. I have lima beans. I've got stuff, y'all. And I will do my best to take you all along with me. That way you're not just listening to me talk. But like I said, this video is about how you get to the garden, what needs to happen before you get there, making sure you have your location, you have your watering, you know what the sun is going to do, you have the proper lighting, you have adequate container sizes. I have large containers in my garden to include, I'm putting some things in the ground to include, I have buckets. You can use things that are gifted to you, things you found on the side of the road. If you've gone to get your tires rotated or changed, you can use those. I do have 3 tire gardens in my back garden. Those have been relegated for flowers, but grow how you see fit. I don't have the prettiest of gardens. I would love for everything to be fancy and colorful and just beautiful, but it works for me. I have a collection and a collage of different things. I'm an eclectic type of person. I have an eclectic personality, and so my garden is a reflection of that. Um, one day when I can afford to have somebody else put my garden in and I can pay for someone else to make all the things pretty, yeah, then that'll happen. But me, no. I'm going to put in the garden what I need to put in the garden to help me do what I want in the garden, which is ultimately grow flowers and grow food, grow herbs, grow all the things that I use. And if I can't grow it, buy it and put it in. So, with all that being said, I hope that you learned something. I know this might be a little scatterbrained, but this is basically for the new gardeners, the gardeners who are moving to new locations, no matter if it's a place that you have are renting or a place that you currently own, and you're trying to figure out how to start where you are. My suggestion is have a plan before you get there. Have someone take a picture of the location where you're thinking about putting your garden. If you have a realtor, see if they can send you a picture. Write down on a piece of paper, sketch out the garden that you think you want to have, and start planting in your on your sketch where you want your garden to be, where you want your containers to be, what plants need to go where that you're thinking it could go there. Sketch it out, and then when you actually have your feet in that garden on that location, then start moving things around and see if what is in your head is what's in your space, and go from there. That's pretty much what I have done. It has worked for me. And every year I am moving things around. I'm like I said earlier, I'm still moving things around. I was in my cut flower garden. I've taken several containers away from the cut flower garden. I have reused that soil. I have put plants in the ground over there. I have put bulbs in larger containers over there. I have continued to consolidate certain things. I have one plant that I'm going to be donating or just basically just giving away to a family member. I'm expecting some seeds in the mail from a good gardening friend, and I want to put that plant in the cut flower garden because I think it'll be absolutely beautiful in that space. So we'll see. Because again, my garden is forever changing. It is constantly morphing into something bigger, greater, better. And that, in my opinion, is the best that I could hope for. It is what I envisioned in some ways. The front flower garden is not quite what I envisioned, but it is getting there. And like I mentioned a couple of days ago, I created even more growing space in the front flower garden. Right now, it doesn't have any plants in it, but a friend of mine just texted me earlier today and moments ago, and she said, "Come by anytime, doesn't matter." She just moved into a gorgeous property. I'm I don't like to be envious of anybody, and usually I am not. But if I lived in her house, oh my word, her kitchen is to die for. I love her kitchen, her closet. I could live in those 2 spaces. And her pantry, oh my goodness. She wants me to teach her how to can. So I'm going over to her house tomorrow. She has a persimmon tree I believe that the previous owners put in her yard. I'm not sure. I'll find out later today or tomorrow. And she says she has persimmons that are ready to be harvested. So I get to go over and take advantage of some persimmons. I've never really eaten a persimmon that was good. I bought one from the store and it wasn't good. So we're going to see if I like persimmons. If I do, Y'all, I'll put a picture on my Instagram of her tree and those persimmons because I'm making out like a fat rat. I'm harvesting pecans from near my job and I get persimmons tomorrow. So with all that being said, just remember that your garden is what you envision your garden to be. No matter what size, no matter where it is, you can garden in a container, on a patio, on a back patio, in an apartment, inside your apartment, inside a rental home. You can garden wherever you are. There might be parameters that you have to follow those, but don't be afraid to grow something. My first garden in my home was a raised bed garden as well as a small container garden. When I sold that home, I was in transition, so I began to grow in containers and I kept growing in containers in this house because of the conditions that I am dealing with. I am putting things in the ground. I hope I'm not going to regret that, but I am putting things in the ground because this is where I am. And as long as I'm here, I am going to be comfortable in my space. So, with that being said, grow something, share your knowledge with someone. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that it was useful for you. I hope that you learned something. Leave me a comment. Let's have a dialogue about your garden. Ask me any garden question that you like. I'm not a professional. I am just a woman who got into growing outdoors due to a significant death in the family many, many years ago. And I have been growing outdoors ever since. And as long as I'm capable and able, I will continue to grow. So share this video if you like. Leave me a comment. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Hit that like button. And if you haven't, again, like I said, share the video. Someone somewhere is starting anew. Someone somewhere is starting over. And this could be the information that they need to jumpstart their new garden. So until next time, bye for now. And oh yeah, grow something. Use your space wisely, like I did. I have large containers, so I put carrots around the edge where my drip line is, and I put food in the center. Beets, Swiss chard, parsnips. Use the space you have and grow. Bye for now.